Hi everyone, I hope you all are doing very well. Overall, you are protected from this coronavirus issue. Today, I will be presenting the solution to the COVID-19 and I'm going to talk about the consequences in the economy and our lives as well. This is the index of the presentation. The presentation titles will let us know when we move from one section to the next one. Propagation versus infection in one slide. These numbers are 10 days old. We have nearly 40 million people sick with COVID-19 and 1.1 million people have died after infection with Coronavirus2. Comparing these numbers with the total population, we'll find out that 0.0005% of humanity is sick. However, 99.9995% is running away trying to avoid contamination. By legacy, governments have focused on sick. That is why we know so much about symptoms and medical facts. Meanwhile, healthy people are obligated to isolation or to go out to the streets without knowing what's going on. Why legacy? Well, every time we see a menace to our health, we think about a physician to cure. This is a very, very important concept, curing. Nevertheless, we never involve ourselves in the prevention. That is the reason why this COP2 is killing us. Turning our attention to the contagion mechanisms will put us on the track of prevention, something that we are not used to. And that's not in the field of physicians. Instead, physicists are the right professionals to advise governments and the crowd. Why? Concepts such as nanoscale, fluid mechanics, and surface tension might provide the needed information to keep us aware of the enemy that we are facing. Sometimes I'll call this pandemic the attack of the arrogavirus, meaning or coming from arrogance. Let me show you why. This table says that the US is doing very poorly. Although, since humans propagate the virus, more crowded areas tend to have higher contagion numbers and perhaps deaths. Statisticians will normalize these numbers and instead provide us with numbers per million of citizens, as shown in the following tables. Statisticians also will tell that this index is not the contagion per million citizens, but a measure of how disciplined is a population. Lack of discipline might happen because sufficient information is not provided, or the citizens just decide to ignore the warnings. I'm keener to think that individuals will do everything to keep themselves healthy and safe, so more likely they are not receiving enough information. The social discipline has the US in position 14. They are not on the top. Colombia is 23. In this ranking. South Africa is the only African country in the top 50, not 15, but 50 in this index. Regarding deaths by million of citizens, again, statisticians will have a different look. This index will measure the effectiveness of the social systems. Look at the ranking. After 6 months of pandemic, some countries with universal coverage systems that's supposed to be the best, I'm not a politician, but that's supposed to be the best, should start returning the citizens' money. Let us see now the COP2 contagion in some countries. Again, Africa is not that affected. That's why North African countries are shown. Notice that Western Europe is using the same strategy. Initially, the isolation was effective. They flattened the curve, and after a month with contagion below 400 per day, they decided to lift the restrictions. 18 days after, the contagion per day started going up. Today, Western Europe is experiencing another peak of contagion. Look at the case of Colombia. Colombia never managed to reach a flat curve, despite mandatory isolation. However, we had to lift restrictions for economy reasons. And that needs to be said. That was the economy. In conclusion, today's world is in the same strategy. They are using the strategy proposed by the US and followed by Sweden. where the economy is prioritized. And this is not a bad thing. It took us 6 months of isolation to understand that a bad economy, listen to this, a bad economy is more lethal than the virus itself. It took us 6 months. Now, I will dive into the scientific review. The coronaviruses were reported around the 1950. That means in the 50s. But this paper is particularly striking. This is from 1969. Since it reports the capacity to cause respiratory disease and the pathogen's size. We were by time ago. Note here how the diameters of the coronaviruses are reported in millimeters of micrometers. By that time, the nanoscale had no name. Furthermore, here the reported size of previous viruses that started the pandemic processes that happened more recently. We in South America are not aware of this because we stopped that pandemic process or those pandemic processes. How we ended these pandemics? We killed the vectors. Pigs, birds, we killed them all. How big were these pathogens? On the same scale of the current coronavirus 2. I'm going to explain why we keep getting sick despite the use of personal protective equipment. It is all matter of size. That is the reason to use this metric scale to locate our objects. Here is the COP2, Coronavirus 2. I also put here the adenovirus and the H1N1 and the H5N5. Those caused the pandemics in 2008 and 2009. These pathogens might not proceed equally inside the human metabolism, but in terms of propagations, since they have similar dimensions, we can account some experience from the pandemic processes that happened in 2008 and 2009. Here the evidence to exhort humanity to take between 1.5 and 2 meters of distance from other individuals. When sneezing or coughing, particles travel that distance and precipitate. That is partial information in several senses. The same coughing and sneezing process might produce smaller particles that can travel longer than 2 meters in the form of aerosols. Aerosols might also be produced by mucus evaporation. This study defined the falling time depending on the particle's size. In the experiment, the falling distance is 3 meters, and the falling times are on the x-axis. As you can see, particles smaller than 3 micrometers never settle. That means that they travel all the time. Moreover, the COP2 can be found in aerosols in all these regions, and the viruses are contagious. Now, let us talk about the masks. Here is a report that studies the pores of the surgical mask. This is true in the surgical masks, not the artisan ones that one can buy nowadays in the streets or the grandmother's crochet made. The pores range is depicted by the blue line that goes from 16.9 to 47.7 microns. Masks are the cornerstone of protection, but look at the lines here. Since the blue line touches the red one on the right side, recall that going to the right means going smaller. We can say that masks are okay to avoid contagion by droplets. That means coughing or sneezing. This statement is marginal, but is acceptable. Nevertheless, the masks do not represent any protection to airborne pathogens. That means the ones that are aerosols. And remember that they can travel way longer distances than 2 meters. Citizens of the world are using masks as their only protection. Here I will use magenta lines between the limit of protection and a big vial with 200 nanometers in diameter. That's a speculation, they are way smaller. Here is the region of unexistent protection. Now, I'm going to move that unprotected zone to a visible world. If the virus is a soccer ball with 22 centimeters in diameter, the densest mask will have pores 52 meters in diameter. This might be a reason for the disciplined societies such as the Germans to be living a second peak of contamination. People in the world should understand this scale diagram. And overall, we need better protection than the mask. That's why we propose the Bio1. The Bio1 is a full-face capsule that employs a PET visor, an anti-fluid fabric, and an engine to supply filtered oxygen to the interior. The engine also assures positive pressure at least 1 milliliter of water, even in deep inhalation. These are the initial drawings. And here how the barrier device looks. These are the designs of an improved device that has the injector decoupled. Here is how it looks. And now is the time to talk about Evalua, the data centralizer presented in a previous delivery of ICAI, so that will not give much details. Here a portal available at evalua.com. Evalua is highly customizable, and that's why we keep track of data generated in different environments. Since our presentation in ICAI 2019, we have ventured into this field. The list is not exhaustive. We connected the Bio1 to Evalua using Evalua's IoT and the API. We have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and Sigfox. This last one is specific for IoT implementations and allows communications when Wi-Fi and GSM are not available. The data that travels between the two devices is given by 4 temperature sensors, 1 humidity sensor, 2 gases exchange sensors, 1 on the interior and 1 on the exterior, a battery monitor, alarms via buzzer, and a GPS. This scheme enables specific services that are highly desirable, but it has been that a desire. As an example, I'll talk about the GPS fences. With Evalua and the Bio1, we have proposed a protocol to clean zones from COP2 without vaccines. We need 15 days and 5 hours in any zone other than hospitals, and 2 months and a half to clean a hospital if all personnel are using the Bio1. Institutions might monitor individuals' health without requiring users' input. The principle is simple. The COP2 gets denaturalized in 3 to 5 hours. If the barrier is effective, this protocol will clean the COP2 and any other airborne pathogen by letting them denaturalize outside the human body. Briefing. Evalua is a system sponsored by Ministerio de Ciencias, which is the council, the Research Council of Colombia. The system presents benefits. It saves money since time zero. When you start implementing, you start saving money and allowing the people to work product. We have the priority in the patent. Possibility of artificial intelligence with an impact to all human aspects. All, not only the ones associated to the COP2, but to the health of the people beyond the COP2 pandemic. When Evalua and Bio1 are together, the performance exceeds those of the self-diagnostic apps, which you might have experienced. What's the deal with those devices? And when you have to do your own diagnosis, well, you can lie. The proposed system makes it possible to use real GPS fences. I already mentioned that. The proposed strategy suggests cleaning in 2.4 months. This is striking. We can do it. We just need discipline. If we are not talking about a whole country, we can start doing it by departments inside companies, parts of the hospital, but we can do it. We just need discipline. Beyond the context of this pandemic, this solution is the missing link for transferring to a preventive medicine. Regarding the economy, Bio1 is a direct path to work reactivation. This is a Colombian development. Any country, and now it becomes, when we do this kind of divulgation, it becomes part of the humanity. We just need the people to understand that we need to get involved. We need the discipline, and we need to perform pilot tests to corroborate our hypothesis. And we can do it without vaccines. Moreover, if we solve the problem with this solution, the consequence is that we are going to be ready to face any similar problem with any pathogen. Thank you so much. Now I open the space for the questions. I forgot to show you something. I don't know where my camera is. I got 2 cameras. Let's see if you can see my capsule I don't know if I have to dress it. This is the first model that we produce. Here is the filter, engine, and a battery over here. Well, this is the first device that we produce. I can put it on, but it will take me time. So here's the capsule. Very, very light device.